Hello, everyone. This is Tim Rowan, and welcome to another edition of Meet the CEO. I'm really pleased to be joined today by Michael Gelman, who is the president and CEO of CareConnect. I'll let him tell you more about the company, but I'm sure you're already familiar. They have actually been one of the generous advertisers of the Rowan Report for over a year now, and you've had a chance to click on their ads and get to know them a little bit better. So, Michael, welcome to Meet the CEO.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate it.
Now, you have created a company or joined a company that is doing something a little bit different. You're not a typical electronic health record company. You're not telehealth. So can you give us a little background on CareConnect, especially if you would tell us why the company was formed? What do you see going on in the industry? What problems that needed to be solved?
Sure. So company was formed in 2017, kind of a back of a napkin idea to address the workforce shortage issues in post-acute. It was pre-pandemic, pre-COVID, and those issues have only gotten, 100 times more acute since then. But there was an issue already. And the thinking was that if we can come up with creative ideas to delight home care workers and caregivers to take work from agencies we serve, that we can create a better, more productive and optimized workforce for that agency, but also a much happier and loyal caregiver or home care worker that's not churning as often as there have been in the past.
Yeah, the problem with staff shortage has been around for years. I hear about it at almost every conference I attend. So maybe you can tell us what you saw in 2017 and how it led to the particular kind of solution you came up with.
Yeah, and just to give a background on me, I've been in post-acute world since about 2000, so 22 years now. I was an operator originally for a bunch of skilled nursing facilities, assisted living, home care agencies in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, all up the east, up and down the East Coast. And I saw a need for technology to help drive clinical and financial outcomes in those nursing homes and assisted living. And I went over to Sigma Care as one of the original guys there, which is a post-acute EHR that's part of Matrix Care now. And we went from a startup to exiting there, and learned a lot about the right way to, number one, service technology in a post-acute setting, but also the right way to implement it. It's not like, putting a point of sale system at your local grocery store. It's a little bit of a different feel to it. And then in 2019, when CareConnect, which was formed to solve and take a stab at this workforce issue that was being underserved, we had our first customer, VNS&Y's Partners in Care, which is their home care arm. And I came on to help implement that and commercialize the business.
I didn't realize that. So essentially the largest home care agency in the country, at least the largest in New York, was your first customer?
Yeah, it was a bit of a challenge, but they are great partners. Really, really great partners. No pun intended.
Yes, great people. So you're looking at the staff shortage problem. And you're looking at communication from point to point. So tell me exactly what kind of technology solution you came up with. What is the way you are addressing those problems?
I think, Tim, the best place to start there is the problem we were trying to solve, right? So as technologists and engineers, and I'm really just an accountant pretending to be in this business, but we try to solve problems, right? So the problem that we saw and was the kind of initial project that CareConnect took on was helping home care agencies optimize their workforce by getting them to take more shifts and more client shifts without needing to expand your pool. We started this, and we have tons of tools. We have recruitment tools and applicant tracking tools, and we have onboarding tools. We have compliance tools. We have lots of shift tools and communication tools, but they're all geared towards one thing. And what we're trying to do is help agencies drive revenue by filling more shifts without affecting their margin by adding cost. So in effect, what most people are doing in the industry to solve this problem, and what we saw as a differentiator for us and how we can solve it in a different, more productive way, is that everybody's kind of taking a piece. And what they're trying to do is just get more people in the pool. And it's whether they're training them faster, whether they're putting good broadcast messages on Indeed or other places that they recruit, whether it's how they manage their applications and onboarding process. But nobody is thinking well around how you bring these things together in order to help the agency and the caregiver and ultimately the client, because if they have consistent care, their outcomes are generally better. So the way I look at it, or the way we look at it at CareConnect, is, there has been a worker, nurse, caregiver, home care worker shortage in the United States for 20 years. Nothing's changed, right? It became way more acute now, and everybody's always trying to optimize their efficiencies on how they onboard people, but the pool is staying the same. So if you're just bringing more people in and you're not making their lives easier, giving them stuff they want to do, they're just going to churn. It's going to cost you, the $2,000-$3,000, sometimes even more dollars you pay towards a new caregiver when they churn, which is going to drive up your margin. But if you can get a loyal group of caregivers to go take work, then you can increase that revenue and maximize all your offs without having to put things in like added incentives and added bonuses and things like that drive down your margin. And so the first thing we said was, let's take an approach that's going to optimize the people you have, because getting more people is expensive, right? And then we said, let's take some tools from outside of healthcare, something that I've done a lot over the course of my career, and bring them into healthcare, because there's good proven ways to do things that sometimes we're a little slower to adopt in our part of the market. And we said, well, if we build a lot of tools that ask caregivers and agencies to input a lot of data manually, no one's ever going to do it. I won't name an agency, but I'll give you a story about preferences where we thought we were going to have to put thousands of preferences in. We didn't have the technology to pull them in automatically, and it was early on in the company, and someone here just said, you know what, I'm just going to spend the weekend and key them all in. It's thousands, but it's worth it. We're a startup. That's what you do, right? Well, they pulled the preferences down, and there was like 200 total in the whole database. And as we've checked that consistently across our customer base, we've gone from that one customer way back when, we have over 200 now. They're thinking that they're putting that stuff in is just wrong. Nobody's entering that kind of data. And anybody that's going down the path of using tools that are just going to create more work for everybody will take a lesson learned from the EHRs of the early 2000s, where people were just trying to replicate workflow from paper to an electronic basis. And it wasn't until we started putting in clinical decision support and all the things that look at behaviors to create solutions and recommendations did that stuff really start to have impact on outcomes. Well, if the outcome we want to have an impact in home care is to have a delighted caregiver who wants to take work from a particular industry, we need the data about the behavior of that industry, of that caregiver, the behavior of that client, the behavior of that agency, and no one's putting it in manually. And to hope for that is it's just a losing battle. So what we did was we said, let's take a look at what people do. I'm going to stop looking at what people say and what they want verbally, and I'm going to start looking at their behaviors. And we built these learning tools, machine learning tools, and AI algorithms to help track caregivers' preferences from what they do, and clients' preferences from what they do, and agencies' preferences from what they do. And as a result, now we can predict with almost 70% accuracy and confidence that if we send a shift to someone, we know what time of day they like to see the shift. We know what time of day they like to, how many shifts they like to look at a time and make decisions about. But based on those criteria, which can be individualized for a particular caregiver, we know with almost 70% probability that they'll actually take the shift. But more importantly, we know with almost 100% confidence that someone won't take that particular shift. So what we can do now is only send that caregiver good work for them. And they know when they get an email or a text message or a push notification from CareConnect for the agents, that a particular agency that they work for, and they're probably working for 3 or 4, it's going to be work that they want. And they're going to jump to get it, and they're going to take more work from that agency than they're going to take from other agencies, because the path of least resistance for them to get the best work they want is through this technology. And what we're seeing as a result are agencies are starting to fill 20% more shifts. It all goes to the bottom line. Caregivers are more loyal. We're doing a study right now with Cornell to look at communication and how that impacts outcomes with patients. And again, all that is based on the behavior of what those caregivers and those clients and those schedulers are doing. We're not asking people to data entry a lot of information, and they're getting the outcomes.
So help me to understand exactly what this might look like practically. What is the caregiver carrying? What kind of device and what kind of information goes back and forth? In other words, talk me through the daily routine of someone who uses CareConnect mobile.
Sure. So the agency users are going to consume CareConnect through a web portal on their PCs. It's all SaaS-based, nothing to download. And the caregiver and the home care or the home care worker is consuming CareConnect through an app on their phone, whether it's an Android device or an iOS device, Apple device. What they get onto that phone will be any information required for them to actually decide whether they want to take a visit or not. We can do two-way chat. It survives, it's ongoing, it's not one time. We can send information about that client. We can ask the caregiver questions at any time. The caregiver can ask any questions at any time. And then we're interoperable with your agency management system. So we're going to get in all your caregivers, all your clients, all your schedules, and all your shifts will come in through our integrations with your AMS. And then we send back filled shifts and any other learning or other work that you might have done to get paid, so that people can get paid, and the AMS has a complete record of what happened with that customer, with that client.
Now, it sounds to me like it's more than just a scheduling add-on to an agency management system. But it does interact, you said, with an agency management system.
And the way, Tim, we talk about it is we amplify the value of our agency management system. We're not trying to compete with them. As a matter of fact, they're our biggest partners. We come in and we say, look, we understand that the regulatory requirements and the payer requirements for an AMS to keep up with and to keep pricing at a reasonable level that these agencies that are working on such small margins can afford, there's only so much they can do, and they're focused in that area. And the industry needed another tool that was really focused, built for purpose home care workforce solution. And people are putting in Workday and big HRIS systems, and it's like a square peg in a round hole. It's definitely becoming an issue for them. And we come in with something that's very specific to the industry, it solves the unique needs of post-acute care.
So the advantage then, let's go back and talk a little bit about the solving of the staffing shortage problem that everybody has been dealing with. You said for 20 years, but of course it's gotten worse in the last couple of years. Are you talking about enhanced recruiting? Are you talking about retention, where you keep the staff, the caregiver, happier on the job and happier with your agency than another, or the third leg of that stool, which is where you can take care of patients, clients with fewer people, so you're not as pressured to hire. Which exactly how does it address each of those legs of that stool?
Yeah, so we have great and robust tools to address the first two legs of the stool, which is, getting more people on the platform, keeping them there, driving down costs, managing your overtime, getting people recruited, giving them benefits. All those things exist, and we do a great job with it. But our primary focus as a company, the solution we're trying to solve, is the third leg, which is really a revenue leg, right? So, to give some examples, there was an article from Biata that said a few months ago that said that they're turning away 60% of their referrals. I can tell you, I've personally talked to hundreds of agencies about this issue, whether they're customers or not. And one agency told me they were only turning away 16%. I don't necessarily believe them, but maybe, right? And I hope to make it 6%. But I know that if I can tackle this issue where we can fill more shifts with the staff you have, so instead of trying to figure out how to recruit people and drive down turnover, and focus on getting as many high-paying shifts into the system as you can, the way the market's changed is that workforce has become a revenue throttle for the agency. So if they're turning away 60% or 50% or 40% or 20% of their shifts, if we can put our tools in place and we're super focused to help them capture that some portion of those referrals that are being turned away. Now, I don't think that we're going to get 100% of the referrals. There's a huge shortage, but I know that an average size agency, if I can just affect the amount of shifts they're able to take with the same amount of workforce by 10%, I can put $500,000 to their bottom line. We can help them there, and their patients are going to get better, more consistent care, and their workforce is going to be happier and have more consistent, work from a single source. Everybody wins, and that's a much better solution than what Michigan's doing right now, cutting reimbursement by 45%. I read that yesterday, right? That's nuts, right? Everybody else is trying to figure out how to put more money in to attract more caregivers, but at the end of the day, there's a financial issue. So you get pressures from both sides. And the way we try to approach this problem, and I think it's unique from what other folks are doing, is to not drive more cost. It's actually to keep costs stable and drive more revenue, to drive margin, which is what from a financial, from a fiscal angle of the business, that's what everybody wants. And I'm a big believer that revenue and quality of care go hand in hand. And if you want to now, once you get your referral sources filled, or you do better with them and you want to find more profitable ones, you'll be in a position to use your caregiver pool to help service more profitable clients if that's where you go in the future.
Let me push you to drill down a little bit on exactly how you accomplish that. You mentioned earlier that you figure out preferences, that you somehow learn the needs and preferences of each individual caregiver, and you accommodate the scheduling and matching them with clients in order to keep them as happy as possible. That sounds pretty complicated. How exactly do you learn the caregivers that well?
It's pretty complicated, and it's a good thing that, we're all pretty geeky here at CareConnect and like to kind of dig into this stuff. But we started with the concept of we have to have these tools where people can put their preferences in. It's like table stakes. You got to have them. People want them. It's all in CareConnect. No one has to worry that we don't do it at all. It's all in there. But we said, if we're going to use the premise that people don't update their information in a robust way, that we have to get it from them somehow. That's how we approach, without asking, that's how we approach the problem. And, when you look at competitors' products and they say, hey, we have, 25 different preferences areas you can put in, and we match based on this and that, it's what we should have been doing 10 years ago, not what we should be doing today. What we should be doing today is looking at the history of how caregivers take shifts, what shifts they take, which shifts they don't, when do they accept a client, when do they don't, what pieces of information about that client are important to them when they take it. We have, without giving out the secret sauce, there's many, many points of behavior that we're looking at, and it's a learning model. So these are traditional AI machine learning models that will update over time. It's only going to get better, and that's exciting to us. We have a tool now where we provide access to early pay for caregivers if they have an emergency, and there's a whole fraud engine behind it. And we went from a tactical fraud engine to a behavior-based fraud engine, and now we can actually give people more money up front because we have more confidence in their ability to pay it back. So there's so much we can do through this technology, and there are so many different places that we can deploy activity-based analysis to drive outcomes. And right now we're super focused on shifts, but there's more to come, right? And it'll always be workforce related, because that's where we're focused. I'm not looking to become an EHR. We're not looking to compete with our partners. We're looking to help amplify them and continue to build tools that allow them and us to provide value to our customers and to the agencies and the caregivers. All of them are customers.
You're right. It is a geeky, to use your words, enterprise, and it sounds like a great deal of the utility of it is in the secret sauce, which would take us hours, even if you were willing to reveal it. So how about if we cut to the effects? You mentioned briefly about some of the numbers and the results that you've been able to achieve for VNSNY and others, but can you give me some overall? You've got, what did you say, 200 users right now at
200 agencies, right? So we have about 150, 200,000 caregivers on the platform.
So what kind of results then does that on an aggregate, or maybe just mentioning some of your customers are the best results? What have they achieved because of using CareConnect?
Well, it would be, if you did the math, if we said everybody got 10% more shifts filled through CareConnect, and we have 150,000 caregivers, and which could roughly correlate to 150,000 to 200,000 clients, and if we can fill an extra 10%, another 20,000 clients a month or a week for these agencies, we're probably putting $20 million to the bottom line of the agencies combined, right? When you start to do the math.
Because of the
capturing more margin, just capturing more margin.
More margin, they don't have
by
to
filling
turn
more
away.
shifts. Right.
Yeah. That you said something about turning away as high as 60% of referrals because they can't staff it. So if you can cut that down, then you're not only increasing your bottom line, but you're cutting into the cost of employment. I don't know if you mentioned it before, but you had some numbers you were telling me about what it costs to onboard someone.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard every agency has its own process, right? But we've heard everything from about $2,000 to $4,000 a caregiver for onboarding costs. So every time,
no, go ahead.
Every time you try to expand your pool, by 20, 30%. Just multiply 2 as a 1,000 as a conservative number by the amount of people you're trying to expand your pool by, versus, which is going to eat into your margin, right? So versus having a stable cost around your workforce, managing their overtime, right? And those extra costs that come out, and being able to fill more of your referrals. So now you have a stable cost, your margin staying stable, and now you're going to capture that margin across more shifts. And that's what we're focused on, to help agencies make more money and to make sure caregivers are getting the work they want.
It's almost like what they used to teach us in sales classes about how it's a lot cheaper to keep a customer than to win a new one.
That's right. I like to use the 20% rule. If we can help you, if we can help you garner 20% more of your referrals and reduce turnover by 20%, you paid for CareConnect 4 or 5 times over.
Especially if you've spent that $2,000 to $4,000 to bring someone on, and they don't stay very long. They don't stay long enough to earn enough money to cover that $2,000 to $4,000.
And just because you train them and onboarded them doesn't mean they're going to take the work you give them. It's got to be work that they want. So you may never get a single hour out of that person. You just paid for their turnover.
So that's the key. You're talking about giving them the work that they want. And is that kind of the bottom line of what your goal is?
Give the caregiver the work that they want based on their historical behavior, without asking them 1,000 questions about the work that they want, without asking them to put information in, matched to clients that need their skill set, provides better outcomes for the client, better work-life balance, better work for the caregiver, and better financial margins and outcomes for the agency. And that's where we're focused.
I've talked about this kind of thing with a number of agency owners and people on the recruiting staff, and I can almost guess what people who are listening to us today are about to ask, and that is, if I only have one available caregiver, I'm going to put that caregiver wherever I need them. The luxury of being able to pick and choose, like you said, giving someone the work that they want. Sometimes there's such a shortage, they don't even have that option. They grab whoever can breathe and walk and drive and give them to a client.
And I think that if you're finding someone that can only walk or breathe or drive, and they don't have any propensity for that care for that client or patient, you're probably never getting them for a second shift. All right. So that's something to think about. And you're right. We're not going to solve we're not there. The issue is too acute for us for me to be honest and say to you as an agency owner that I'm going to make sure every one of your shifts is filled. That would be dishonest. I'm not going to say that, but I know I can have a big impact. And there's still going to be the ones that you're on the fringes that you're trying to find someone to fill because you don't have the luxury to do that. But I know that all those owners would feel better if they were providing someone that was the right person for that shift, filling it, and getting the outcome they want for that patient and driving their margins. And maybe, once they get another 10 or 20% of their shifts filled, maybe then they're working on the margins, like they're working on those, on the really tough ones like they were before. But at least you're going to get, another 10 or 20% of healthy patients and happy caregivers.
Yes, and that way you increase patient satisfaction as well as worker satisfaction, which ultimately you would assume improves outcomes, improves repeat business, the reviews that the family might post all across the board.
Yeah, 3 or more caregivers starts to have bad outcomes. We want to keep it under that number.
So to summarize, if we assume that there are 3 ways to solve the staff shortage problem, one is get more people, keep the people you have, and use the people that you have more efficiently so that you actually can do the same amount of patient care, client care with the same or fewer. So you need fewer people. So if we assume that those are the only three ways I can think of, you're kind of focused on the third one then, right?
Well, what I would say is the first two are required, but they're not the most important piece. You have to be focusing on all three of them. When customers, and we sell parts of our product in individual pieces, right? But when customers come and they say, I want to use just your learning, or I just want to use your compliance or something like that, of course, we're going to say, okay, right? But the first thing I'll say to them is you're not going to get the outcomes you want unless you're kind of using these things together. I think you're going to have a much better experience. And we are focused on the third part of driving revenue, which is why everybody's looking to fill these shifts faster, right? Let's be honest, this is America. We're a capitalist society. We're trying to drive revenue and volume and get, and in the not-for-profits, that's true as well. But also, everybody wants better care, and we're focused on all these different areas. We just come about it in a way that's going to be the most effective, which would be, pay attention to what people are doing, not what they're saying, provide them with work and that their behavior would suggest they like to take, and continue to delight them so they work for your agency for the same caregiver, for the same patients over and over again.
And that's an important point, is that most of these caregivers are going to be working for 2, 3, 4 or more agencies at a time, taking whatever shifts because they're in such demand. It's like a buyer's market.
Yeah, it's actually a little higher. Right, Tim, it's actually a little higher. We look at our customer base, we can tell, right? So there's a couple things about CareConnect that are differentiators that allow us to do what we do differently than everybody else. One is definitely this behavior-based analysis and learning. But because our architecture is caregiver-centric, right? So your AMSs, your EHRs, most agency tools are either based on the client or the agency focus. We're focused on the caregiver. So I know, without telling anybody else what everybody's doing, we never share the information from one agency to another, but I know what these caregivers are doing across agencies. So for example, when you say 3 to 4, I happen to know that, in a local market here in New York City, where it's really condensed, there are actually 4 to 5, maybe 5 to 6 agencies they're working for. And who knows if they're taking hours from all those agencies. Maybe they're only taking hours from 3 or 4. Everybody's a little different. But as a result, I can provide insight without delivering information about another agency to a customer that would be more effective about that caregiver. So I know, for example, if this caregiver takes more cases over there, well, I can look at those behaviors and why are they taking more cases over there based on the cases we're giving them. And then I can employ that, evenly across all the agencies that we provide cases for that caregiver. So they're only taking good work. And then they know that if they're getting a case through CareConnect for one of the agencies that they work for, that's a CareConnect agency, it's most likely going to be something they want, and they're going to react to it.
So it's not so much getting more caregivers, it is getting them to spend more shifts with you than with the other ones that they're working for.
Yeah, because the pool's just getting smaller. And there's not a lot of new people moving to New York, right? So, or to other states right? People aren't, it's not, the population shift isn't moving around. It's staying stable. As a matter of fact, it's shrinking as people leave the industry because you can make more money working in retail. So, and it's less risky, right? And you don't have to go into someone's home, but there's other benefits too, right?
Yeah.
So stable or shrinking workforce, doing your best to get more for you as the only way you're attacking it, is probably not the most efficient way to go about it.
I think I have a much better understanding of exactly what CareConnect does now. And I'm guessing that as we run out of time, people are going to wonder how to get in touch with you. I'll put it on the screen at the end of this, but go ahead and tell us the best way to contact you and your people.
Yeah, you can send me an email. It doesn't matter. I run the company. I talk to my customers all day long. It's michael.gelman@careconnectmobile.com.
Michael.Gelman, that's Gelman at CareConnect Mobile. All right. We'll put your email up there. And then, of course, the website, I assume, is the same, careconnectmobile.com.
careconnectmobile.com. And there's forms to fill out if you want to get a demo or anything like that. But if you just
Oh,
want to
good.
talk
Yeah.
about kind of how we're thinking about things and what's the how we approach this stuff, and you think you have a better idea or you want to chat about it, there's nothing I like to do more than talk about CareConnect. So please reach out.
I'm sure that that's true. And I hope that people who are watching us today have learned as much as I have. But now that we're out of time, I wanted to spend a minute just to thank you very much.
Thanks,
We've been speaking with Michael Gelman, the president and CEO of CareConnect. You're based in New York, but you have a virtual company with marketing people and salespeople in different locations, so they can get in touch with you directly or to
I think
the
we
rest of the company
span
through the
like
website.
5 time zones now. I think
Yeah.
we span like 5 time zones right now. Yeah, we were a startup during the pandemic, so we do have offices in Long Island, but most of us are remote all over the country.
Well, we wish you well, and I want to thank you very much for spending some time with us, Michael. And
Thank
I
you,
want to
Tim.
thank all of you too for joining me on this edition of Meet the CEO. I'm Tim Rowan. You can subscribe, of course, to the Home Care Tech Report, the Rowan Report, by going to homecaretechreport.com. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time.